You can see over here a significantly grade 3 to grade 4 cataract, and routine phacoemulsification is the plan for this. I am making a 2.2 millimeter clear corneal incision. The capsule has been stained. There is a certain amount of hydration of the wound that occurs at the time of introduction of the saline. That's a 5.5 millimeter rhexis that I am making. In these fairly hard nucleus, usually I aim at a reasonably good nucleus capsular rhexis size. That's only one heminucleus that's being brought out and chopped and then subsequently emulsified. This is happening at the plane of the iris and keeping the plane of emulsification as posteriorly as possible. One heminucleus removal has happened quite uneventfully. It's only when I come to the second heminucleus being removed, suddenly there is a surge and there is a PC rent that occurs, and you can see this nucleus segment has a propensity to get displaced backwards. So obviously there is a PC rent. So what I do is to go in with 2 Sinskey hook and maneuver the rest of the heminucleus into the anterior chamber, and I inject viscoelastic, dispersive viscoelastic behind this heminucleus. That helps me to keep the anterior vitreous phase intact and also coats the endothelium. And in this case, the original plan was to use a single piece intraocular lens, but now I am going to inject a 3-piece intraocular lens behind the fairly large nucleus fragment that is still there in the anterior chamber. Once I inject this 3-piece intraocular lens, which can be either left on the iris or being rotated into the sulcus as I am doing now, this compartmentalizes the anterior chamber from the posterior chamber and act as a scaffold, preventing the nucleus fragments or the cortex from dropping into the vitreous because through the fairly large PC rent that I have over there. Now with repeated refilling of the anterior chamber with dispersive viscoelastic, using not continuous phaco power but interrupted phaco power, I gently remove the fairly hard brown nucleus fragment that was there. Definitely I would have lost some endothelial cells, but it did go off reasonably well. And now is the time to go through the PC rent and do an adequate anterior vitrectomy, and that's what has been done. We cut off whatever little strands of the vitreous that is there, and now we use triamcinolone acetate to stain for any residual vitreous strands that could be there. And this is the right way of doing it, where the irrigation and the vitrectomy cutters are through 2 different ports, and once you do this, you are able to make sure that the pupil remains round, there is no distortion of the rhexis margin, and that's the end of the case. You could see that the fairly large nucleus fragment that was still not taken out at the time of occurrence of the PC rent could be safely kept in the anterior chamber by using the intraocular lens itself as a scaffold, and then by doing anterior chamber phacoemulsification using gentle parameters, this difficult situation could be dealt with. Sometimes the rent occurs after the nucleus removal, and you would see in this case there is a significant amount of cortex that's left over there. As was already discussed, with the phaco probe inside, we are going to inject dispersive viscoelastic inside through the side port so as to tamponade the vitreous, and then we go ahead with injecting a intraocular lens into the capsular bag. Since this is going into the capsular bag, we stick to the original plan of using a single piece lens that's being rotated into the into its confines of the capsular bag, and you can see a significant amount of cortex that is over there, and I am going to remove that subsequent to placing the intraocular lens as a scaffold to support the anterior vitreous phase. As you could see, no vitrectomy was necessary here because the anterior vitreous phase was not broken. I very gently, with the lens in place, I go ahead and remove the cortex in toto, and this is a fairly stable lens over here. Going on to another situation, you would see in this case again a significant amount of nucleus fragment being there when the PC rent occurs. You can see direct chop being done, nucleus fragment being removed, and a large rent was noticed at this point of time. That's the dispersive viscoelastic which is being injected inside. As in the previous case, we decide to maneuver the nucleus fragments into the anterior chamber. The In this case, instead of the intraocular lens, the viscoelastic itself acts as a tamponade, and there is definitely a posterior vitrectomy anterior vitrectomy would be needed in this situation, but the idea is to remove as much of the nucleus as possible before vitreous presents itself, and by maneuvering the nucleus fragments inside and by doing gentle phacoemulsification without the admixture of the vitreous with the nucleus fragments, you are able to do away with most of the nucleus fragment. Of course, repeated refilling of dispersive viscoelastic in the area of the PC rent may be necessary. In this situation, for removing this heminucleus, I use a spatula to support the nucleus fragment posteriorly, and then without allowing the nucleus fragment to fall through, both because of the Sinskey hook as well as because the dispersive viscoelastic that acts as a plug over there, I am able to completely remove the nucleus fragment, and what you see over there is a large rent and a significant amount of cortex that's over there. And now I am going to be doing a anterior vitrectomy, the irrigation and the vitrector being separated from each other. You would see that the port of the vitrectomy cutter is always facing anteriorly, and then subsequently the same vitrectomy cutter can also be used for removing the cortical material, and in this phase we use the IA cut mode where the aspiration occurs first and vitrectomy follows later, the cut, if at all is necessary, follows later, and this is just to make sure there is no distortion of the rhexis margin as well as the pupillary margin, which tells me there is no vitreous in the anterior chamber. As already mentioned, in all these situations it would be a good idea to use triamcinolone acetate to make sure that there is no strands in the anterior chamber. Since we are shifting from a single piece to a 3-piece lens, because the lens is going to be implanted into the sulcus, we go ahead and enlarge the incision, the 2.2 millimeter initial incision to 2.8 millimeters, and subsequently the lens is dialed into its position in the sulcus and an optic capture is also created. You can see that the ultimate outcome seems to be reasonably all right. Any few strands of vitreous, if at all you suspect, that can also be removed even after the hydration of the wound and stabilizing the anterior chamber. A simple finger test is something I do routinely to make sure that adequate intraocular pressure is established, and that's at the conclusion of the case. In this very short video, I am going to be showing a complication where there is a significant dialysis of the capsular bag. You would see over here that's the capsular dialysis that's occurring, and it was actually an uneventful phaco surgery that was going on. You could use an endocapsular ring to support the capsular fornicis in this case, but just the injection of the viscoelastic itself pushes the bag to its periphery, and in this case I am going to use the fairly firm haptics of the 3-piece lens itself to support the area of the dialysis. In all these situations, I think compared to a softer haptics of a single piece lens, whenever a capsular support is necessary by the haptics of the intraocular lens, it's a good idea to shift over to the 3-piece lens, because the more rigid haptics of the 3-piece lens supports the capsular fornicis more adequately than a single piece haptics could, and that's after placement of the lens. The few cortical remnants that are there in the subincisional area is removed adequately, and that's one of the advantages of having a bimanual irrigation aspiration, where you could access all clock hours of the capsular bag quite adequately. Looking at another situation, this has already been subjected to laser cataract surgery, and this patient was supposed to get a multifocal implant. So the gynecologist who got a multifocal implant done in the other eye just a week earlier. Everything seemed to be under control. Thus the capsular rhexis, the capsule being removed by a down-up technique, and I thought it was a fairly routine case till such time the nucleus was almost completely removed. Then I noticed there was a significant amount of cortical material that was behind the capsular bag when I thought something is wrong. As you can see over here, there has been an extension of the capsular rhexis margin, and that has resulted in a capsular dialysis over here, and that's a significant amount of cortical fragments that are there in the anterior vitreous cavity. In these situations today, I would go ahead and do a pars plana vitrectomy, but in this particular case you would see me handling it with through the anterior root itself, and this is the area of the deficiency in the capsule. because the patient already had a multifocal intraocular lens in the other eye, and I thought there is sufficient amount of capsular support that is there, I go ahead and do an anterior vitrectomy, and you can see that entire vitreous cavity has cleared, and there doesn't seem to be any fragments over there, and I don't want to do a wound assisted implantation here. So though I am sticking on to a single piece intraocular lens, I slightly extend the incision so that I can introduce the mouth of my cartridge into the anterior chamber and inject the multifocal intraocular lens and support it in whatever remnants the capsule that's over there. This surgery was done almost 3 years back, but with the overlap of the rhexis margin onto this single piece multifocal intraocular lens, the cases remain quite stable. Now going on to another situation where we would be doing vitrectomy through the pars plana route. This video is courtesy Dr. Arup Bhaumik of Disha Eye Hospital, Kolkata, and you can see this is already suspecting a PC rent based upon a preoperative photograph, and this is what you see on the table. He has removed the entire nucleus fragment, and it is since there is a significant PC rent which was expected, he is going ahead with introducing a trocar system 3 millimeters from the rhexis, 3 to 3.5 millimeters. There is a MVR blade over there which creates a passage for the anterior vitrectomy cutter to be introduced, and in this way you are not pulling up the vitreous, but essentially pulling in the vitreous from a posterior route, and this is considered to be a more gentle way of removal of the vitreous. And as you can see here, whenever it's necessary, you can go through the anterior route or through the posterior route, so that you can get a quite an adequate vitrectomy vitreous clearing from the anterior chamber. Any cortical fragments that has dropped in can also be completely removed by this technique, and that's again a 3-piece lens that's being introduced into the sulcus, and in case a vitrectomy is necessary, even now that can be done through the posterior route. Triamcinolone acetate diluted is introduced into the anterior chamber. Another vitrectomy being done in a case of a PC rent through the pars plana route. Thus the trocar cannula being introduced, and it's usually at around 3 to 3.5 millimeters from the limbus. It's you go horizontally, then dip it in, and sometimes, like in this situation, it might be a hypotonic globe, in which case you might have to fill in with viscoelastic, and a good anterior vitrectomy is done. Otherwise, the introduction of the intraocular lens is through the anterior, through the main incision, and the irrigation can also be introduced through the other side port incision. This video, the last of my videos, is essentially to show you the kind of problems that an inappropriate dealing with by an anterior segment surgeon could end up with. This was a large nucleus fragment that has dropped into the vitreous cavity, and this is a vitreoretinal colleague of mine who is dealing with it. And essentially, when it drops into the posterior segment like this, it's best to go ahead and implant a lens, or not implant a lens, but hand it over to a vitreoretinal colleague to do a posterior vitrectomy, as is being done in this case. But even though he is using a fragmentome and is able to remove the vitreous as well as the nucleus quite adequately, towards the end of the surgery you would see that there is a retinal detachment that has occurred because of a retinal tear that was in the extreme periphery. On the table he was able to cryo this, and the patient's retina settled down quite well. But this is just to drive home the point that if in case there is a significant nucleus fragment that goes in, it's better not to chase it, but hand it over to a more competent vitreoretinal surgeon who could deal with this situation adequately. Thank you so much. That was just a snapshot of various steps that could be dealt with for the adequate management of a posterior capsular rent. Invariably, in a lifetime of a phaco surgeon, posterior capsular rent is a complication that he or she has to learn to live with. Even experienced surgeons have somewhat less than 1% of posterior capsular rent, though the statistics varies quite a bit. But if we adequately handle using simple basic principles with the right kind of instrumentation, it is still quite possible to get an excellent visual outcome in spite of this complication. Thank you so much for your kind attention.